Hi, Open Noters! Welcome to the Fort Collins Symphony's Open Notes podcast, where we enrich lives through classical music. I'm Norman Manzales, the Marketing and Community Engagement Director, and with me is my co-host, Alyssa.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Rago, the Education and Patron Development Director. In this podcast, we'll look behind the scenes of the professional music world and explore why music is for everyone. Well, today we're excited to chat with composer Alex LaMotte. Alex LaMotte is the winner of the Fort Collins Symphony's 2025 Composer Competition. His original orchestral piece, Land of Open Skies, was selected for its vivid orchestration, emotional depth, and evocative storytelling. The piece will receive its world premiere during our signature Concert 3, Spotlights in Drama and Virtuosity, on Saturday, February 7th at 7:30 p.m.
Alex is a graduate of the University of Colorado Boulder with a BA in journalism and minors in atmospheric and oceanic sciences and music. Whew! His compositions have been performed across the US and internationally. Alex, welcome.
Hello. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You've had such a distinct path with journalism, meteorology, and music. How did each of those interests first come to be?
Yeah, music's always been a very crucial part of my life ever since fourth grade when I started violin, eighth grade for viola, and then just kind of making my way through the high school honor orchestras of it all back in high school. And then I did go to University of Miami for a little bit to study music composition for about 3 semesters. I did quickly learn though that I love music, but I'd like to keep it as a hobby versus a career. And then that's when I switched over to meteorology in particular. It's always something I've been interested in as well, but music's always been the forefront for the longest time. And so, yeah, I figured I would switch course. I transferred to CU Boulder and did atmospheric and oceanic sciences there for a little bit. My ultimate dream career is to be a weatherman on TV. And so I figured adding that journalism aspect of getting to know cameras and getting to know, things like this, Zoom, and all these good technology stuff to really just immerse myself in that world. So now that I'm out of CU Boulder, I've just been actively looking for these weatherman jobs, but composing on the side. So I'm kind of all over the place interest wise, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
Definitely not. Well, let's get into a little bit about your composing background. You started composing back in middle school when your orchestra director introduced you to writing music. Are there any other mentors or inspirations in your life that have shaped your career today?
For sure. My the first name that comes to mind is my high school director, Benjamin Dale. He's the orchestra director at Rock Canyon High School. He was just so supportive of my compositional endeavors. He was very open to having my pieces performed with the ensemble, whether it just be at the school concerts or we had a piece performed at Colorado Music Educators Association conference down in the Springs, which was just the coolest opportunity ever. And he was just so open to being helpful and being gracious and courteous with all of my compositions, even if there were things that needed work. It really helped me grow my compositional love and stuff like that. But I would also say Jody Levitz, my viola professor at University of Miami, she always loved my compositions and would always ask about them during my lessons with her, and she was so she really liked what I had to offer in that regard. And then Angie Dombrowski with Colorado Youth Symphony Orchestras, I was a part of their ensembles for like 7 years. She was very welcoming in terms of my compositions as well. I got to perform, I think, one or two with them as well. So just people being very encouraging and being very kind and supportive of my compositions really just helped me get to where I am today.
It's great to definitely have people like that in your life who are encouraging for something when you're still at the very early stages, um, but at the same time, further along your career, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah, I'm no Mozart. I definitely started out, there were some pieces that they've seen better days. But you got to start somewhere. So,
It's all part of the learning process.
So, for our audiences who may not know what being a composer entails, Could you walk us through the process of composing a piece of music?
Sure. So, I mean, every composer approaches it differently. But for me, I value melodies quite a bit in my compositions. I like having a piece where, it has an earworm, something that you could leave the concert hall maybe whistling the tune in the back of your head. Something that just, I feel like a melody is really the crux of what makes a piece stand out, in my opinion. So I always start with a melody, whether it's usually something that starts in my head. It's either something I will just go right ahead and get started on it, or it's hanging back there for a very long time before it reaches the paper, if you will. And then what I love about like a melody, it's really just open opportunities. I like to think of it as like a little charm bracelet. It's just the string. And then when you add the charms, that's what makes it unique. And so with said melody, you could have a chord progression or harmonies that just you could make it go anywhere, any direction. So, adding those harmonies, adding the timbres of the instruments that you want to convey with that melody can also really change how it's perceived. And yeah, I just kind of think of it as I start at the top and then I make my way down the pyramid until it's become this full-fledged thing.
So, for your melody writing, do you like to go to a keyboard or is it something that you are just humming along? When does it
So,
usually hit you?
So it could be it's usually something that's fully fledged in my head. It's like I hear the melody with the orchestration and with everything in my head, but then I have to be like, okay, how can I translate it down to the paper? Because I can't just like have it appear. So sometimes it's not like a direct translation, but it's at least close. So that's how it usually starts. I do come up with things on the viola. That's my primary instrument. The keyboard. And
I'm a viola
yeah.
player.
Yeah, it could be a variety of different ways though, but I would usually say it's something that's in my head and then it makes its way down.
Do you find that, with your interest in meteorology and atmospheric sciences, does the natural world influence your compositional process at all? Or, I mean, what's the connection between sort of your creative side and your work and school side?
Sure, sure. So I'm a very visual person. I love a piece where I can just picture everything that's going on. And so with the natural world in particular, I really like pieces that do represent nature. Vivaldi's Four Seasons comes to mind first, having something that it's a full-fledged piece, but it has this theme of fall, winter, spring. That really it really resonates with me, just being able to picture what these little motifs that the composer comes up with and what they resemble. I think of trills as birds chirping and stuff like that. I also am very color oriented. I have synesthesia. So just being able to compose with a color palette in mind and being able to paint a picture. Since I'm not artistically in that way talented, I can't draw for life. But at least I can do it through music notes and through sounds and stuff like that. So
So then I have to ask, was there a particular color palette that you had when you were writing Land of Open Skies?
yeah, so the piece is in ABA form. You have the first theme, then you have a slower section, then it ends with the same like opening theme. But I had yellows in mind, I had reds in mind, greens in mind, just very very natural colors. Which I figured would go along the lines of just having that nature in mind. With Land of Open Skies, it's very uh, like landscape driven, and so being able to paint the colors that is Colorado, the American West, just being able to paint it into a nice picture, I think was the goal.
There are a lot of ways composers can evoke certain images or themes to mind. Could you explain, Alex, how different musical instruments help paint a picture for our audiences?
For sure. That's what I love about a symphony is just how many sounds you can explore. With the strings in particular, I think you can really pull off any sound. You can pull off a rustic sound just with the sound of like a fiddle, if you will, or just being able to play with the open strings and stuff like that. But you can also, with the viola in particular, a lot of composers would use it as like resemblant of the human voice because it's similar in the tessitura or like the main part of the range. And so I love being able to just kind of make like string players sound like people or sound like different animals or sound like different just parts of nature, which I think is really cool with woodwinds. You really have that whole range. You really have the grace and the elegance of the flute, but you have the mystery and the darkness of the bassoon, and you could go anywhere in between. The oboe, I think, has a very unique sound in itself. Just being able to have that grace, but also just really like jut its way through the orchestra, which I absolutely love. And the clarinet, just being the high tech instrument, being able to have the range of, 17 octaves. Just kidding. Yeah, I just think it's the coolest thing. And then for brass, I just love how you can have this very brave, very like roaring sounds. Like in Land of Open Skies, I like having a nice trombone chorale, something that, I mean, for lack of a better word, reminds me of like Cars, the movie, like Radiator Springs, just looking out over the landscape. I really love that brass is able to do that. And then percussion, I like to see is like, the sprinkles on top of the cake, the things, the instruments that make the piece just so unique. It adds all these extra little sounds, whether it's the wind chimes or the timpani to get the really big drum sound, or a snare drum to make it sound a little bit more militaristic. So you really can play with anything, and that's what I love about the symphony.
I really want to ask, is there anything in particular with the role of viola in this piece?
Well, I would say that we're not just offbeats, and that's usually the goal. So there's nothing very, very like, yes, the viola has this part, but my goal ultimately with music is I love being able to give everybody at least something, as somebody who's stuck playing offbeats all the time, it's nice being able to play a piece where like we shine with the melody or there's something unique that no other instrument is doing. I really value that as a performer as well as a composer, just being able to give everybody a chance in the spotlight.
Mhm. That's wonderful. As a fellow violist, I appreciate and I'm always looking for similar kinds of parts as to what you just described. The chance to really like be part of the full texture, not just the sort of rhythmic accent. So
For sure.
that's great.
Yeah, I think of us as like the glue, If it was just violin and cello, you would know something's missing. So it's important.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about what audiences will hear in February. You kind of mentioned the color palette already and sort of the natural landscape inspiration. Could you describe what this piece is about?
Yeah, so Land of Open Skies, it's really just a giant painting of the American West. So, you have the very valiant mountain peaks of the Rockies, you have the roaring plains, you have the scorching deserts, you have everything in between. And I just really wanted to have like an amalgamation of everything in this piece. And just being able to play with sound and whether it be the more intimate calm sounds of say looking at the sunset over the mountains versus like cowboys just like roping their lassos down the prairies of Texas or whatever, just really being able to combine it all in one piece. And there's not necessarily like a big story arc, but it's more so just looking at different parts of the American West.
So what do you hope audiences will feel when they hear this piece?
I hope they feel like they just got sucked into this painting, into this world, and are just able to look around and, see all these different like landscapes and hear all these different sounds and just really get you in another place for 7.5 minutes. Because I think that's just what the goal of music is to escape reality there for a little bit. So there's something very fantastical about the piece, very magical, very just otherworldly, if you will, even though it takes place here. Because everybody's coming to the symphony with different things on their mind, different things going on in their life, and I think with a lot of my compositions, I try to give a little bit of an element of escapism, something that can allow people to just be in music for a little bit before they have to go back to their everyday lives.
Well, I know that the committee that reviewed all the pieces that were submitted for the competition really raved on your piece, and hence why you won. because it was so colorful and you highlighted so many of the different areas of the orchestra very well. I can't personally help but not wonder what it would be like to listen to your work if I actually had synesthesia. I know some individuals who see colors, but I also know others who also have certain tastes when they experience certain chords in music. And I've always just thought, oh, that would be so cool to hear like an A major chord and think that's an orange or you
I was thinking strawberries.
know, or something that's more dissonant that would be perhaps more salty or sour. So
Mhm.
I don't think you'll get any of that in your particular work, but just something to think about for maybe our audience members who are able to come to the performance and listen to your fabulous work.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I hope at least one person can taste green chili. That's the goal.
I do. As a recent transplant to Colorado, there is a lot of that around here. The
Yes.
A feature of Colorado that I'm enjoying very much.
Oh, absolutely. As you should.
So, Alex, can you tell us a little bit about what other musical projects you have coming up?
Yeah, so I'm kind of just doing whatever with music at the moment. I am working on my second symphony. It's going to be my biggest project to date. It's just one of those things that I've been chipping away at every once in a while because I have other things going on in life, but when I can sit down and continue working on it, like that's awesome. What I love about having music as a hobby is like things like this just kind of come out of nowhere, and it's like such cool opportunities that I get to be able to endeavor and whatnot. It makes me think back in like 2020, something very similar happened. I had a my piece. It's called Countryside Rigadoon. The group Two Set Violin on YouTube. They were having fan submissions back in the day, and I figured my friend, she told me about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm bored. It's COVID. Let's just send something in. And so I sent something in, and a couple weeks later, I woke up to my phone, just my friends being like, "You're on Two Set Violin." I'm like, "What?"
I saw
And
that
so
video. I remember. Yeah.
yeah, so that was really cool. Because that piece has become one of my more well-known works, and it's just crazy how it can happen in the blink of an eye. And it's all because just being able to do these kinds of competitions and then just finding out that like, oh, people like it. Cool. Alrighty, let's do it. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. But as of now, it's just kind of writing when I can and when I'm in the mood for it. So
Do you have a specific deadline for your second symphony?
You know, no. Yeah, it's more so whenever I just feel it's done. Because right now I have two movements done, and the other two are like just kind of sparse in melody. So I'm like, ooh, okay, still got a ways to go. But and then maybe next year that'd be nice. But we'll see.
Well, I hope you keep the Fort Collins Symphony in mind when you do finish it. Uh, I also want to mention the fact that our music director, Wes Kenny, remembered you from your time at Denver Young Artists Youth Orchestra and always spoke so highly of you. So was very surprised to receive your composition in the mail. And so I think perhaps he might be more tickled to see a symphony down the road. So
Hmm.
we'll
Well,
just
then I'll
see
just
what
have to keep
happens.
that in
Yeah.
mind.
All right, Alex. So before we stop, we have a little fun rapid fire question round for you. So
Okay,
just say the first thing that comes to mind. Are you
let's
ready?
do it. Let's do
Okay.
it.
Favorite composer?
Dvorak.
If you weren't a musician or meteorologist, what would you be doing?
I do like traveling, so I'd probably do something with travel.
What's the best snack during rehearsal break?
Ooh, oh God. Uh, It's usually like a sandwich, I think, usually.
Full meal, going full meal.
Full
That's
meal.
fair.
Oh my gosh, same. And I'm a wind player and I should not be eating that.
Oh, go big or go home. That's what you gotta do.
Exactly.
Do you have a favorite composer joke?
Favorite composer joke.
I won't ask you about viola jokes. So
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Um, I a lot of times in high school, my classmates would be like, "Why did you make this part so hard?" And I'd be like, "Oh, sorry. Tough luck, I guess."
That's the joke.
yeah,
Yeah,
Made it
bummer.
hard just for you.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. We can't wait to hear Land of Open Skies.
Oh, I'm so excited. You have no idea. I'm like beaming with joy. I'm so excited to work with y'all and just be able to create this world with everybody. So,
Well, we're so excited. The concert for all you listeners out there is Saturday, February 7th at 7:30 p.m. We will see you at the symphony.
woohoo!
Thanks for tuning in to the Open Notes podcast. We appreciate your support for the arts. We'd love to know what you want to know, so send your questions and suggestions to podcast@fcsymphony.org.
For more information on the Fort Collins Symphony, visit our website at fcsymphony.org. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next time.
Bye.